Welcome to episode 4 of Cronisphere. Today, we'll dive into some of the most pressing global issues happening right now, from hurricanes to economic shifts, and even political developments that you need to know. Let's begin with the unfolding situation in Florida. Hurricane Milton, now upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane, is currently churning in the Gulf of Mexico. Massive evacuations are underway, with officials urging residents to leave. It's being described as the largest evacuation since Hurricane Irma in 2017. With winds strengthening, Florida's western coast is at risk of significant damage. In the wake of Hurricane Helene, which wreaked havoc across the U.S. Southeast, people are still recovering, and the Biden administration's response with FEMA has been heavily criticized. Many are questioning whether the country is prepared for another major storm so soon. Shifting gears to media and control, 9 months ago, the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal admitted that legacy media outlets have lost their monopoly on controlling the narrative. This change is reshaping how people consume information, and platforms like X, previously known as Twitter, are at the center of this transformation. With alternative voices becoming louder, the legacy media is fighting to regain control, leading to increased attacks on figures like Elon Musk. It's an important reminder that in the age of information, power is shifting, and people are demanding more transparency and accountability. Now let's move to the stock market. Stock market. Us stocks ended Friday on a high note, following the release of the September jobs report. The NFP exceeded expectations, printing at 252,000 jobs added in September. This news caused a ripple effect, with financials, consumer discretionary, and communication sectors leading gains, while traditionally defensive sectors lagged. Treasury yields surged, and speculation about future rate cuts is rampant, as the Federal Reserve tries to navigate between inflation concerns and economic growth. Speaking of the Fed, there's growing anticipation around rate cuts. Following the strong jobs report, the bond market has shifted, with the 2-year yield climbing significantly. Market expectations now suggest that the Fed could cut rates to 3.25% by 2026, as officials balance inflation with slowing economic activity. However, some analysts predict further increases in yields before we see any economic slowdown. On the geopolitical front, Israel continues to strike targets in Gaza and Lebanon, with recent airstrikes hitting a mosque in Deir al-Balah. At least 5 people were killed, and tensions remain high in the region. The conflict is showing no signs of easing, and it remains a key area of concern for global stability. Turning to domestic politics, the Supreme Court is about to kick off its 2024-2025 term, with significant cases on the docket, including hot-button topics like gender, ghost guns, and immigration. The justices are set to make rulings that could have far-reaching implications on American society, and we'll be keeping an eye on how these cases unfold in the coming months. On the business front, Home Depot is scaling back its logistics network, putting up nearly 4 million square feet of warehouse space for sublease. This move is part of its strategy to cut costs by $500 million by early 2024. High interest rates have led to a slowdown in consumer spending, particularly on big home improvement projects, prompting the company to reevaluate its operations. Meanwhile, FEMA is reportedly running out of funds for the remainder of the hurricane season. This is partly due to resources being diverted to address the ongoing migrant crisis at the southern border. Rescue efforts in the southeast have been hampered by these shortages, with more than 400,000 people still without power in the region. As FEMA struggles to meet the needs of citizens affected by natural disasters, public outcry is growing. President Biden has called on Congress to expedite funding for the Small Business Administration's disaster loan program, warning of a potential shortfall following Hurricane Helene. With over 150,000 households registered for FEMA assistance, it's clear that federal support is critical, but the question remains whether the resources will be enough to meet the growing demand. Finally, inflation continues to be a hot topic. According to Fed Governor Christopher Waller, inflation is softening faster than expected, although concerns remain. Falling inflation rates are good news for consumers, but the broader economic landscape is still uncertain, and policymakers remain cautious. As we wrap up, this episode, it's clear that the world is in flux, from weather-related disasters to economic uncertainty and political tensions. Stay informed, stay safe, and we'll be back next time with more updates. Whether you're on an issue or not,